Hi everyone, thanks for coming along to this Healthy University session about fostering student wellbeing. My name is Jenny Richmond and I'm the Director of Undergraduate Programs in the School of Psychology. I teach primarily into our large undergraduate courses and have been using the self-management Moodle section in my courses for several years. The way I use these resources has evolved a bit in the past few years. You can use these tiny URL links at the bottom of the slide to watch short talks about how to import the section, options for using it, and how to integrate activities into your Moodle site or face-to-face classes. What I want to talk about today is my response to some feedback that I got from students about these resources and what I'm doing this year to respond to it. At the end of T1 last year, I surveyed my students in my big second year class about the self-management resources and whether they had been useful in the transition to online learning. And there were a few comments that really stuck out for me. The first is that some students didn't think that these resources were relevant to them at all, or didn't see the need to engage with them when they weren't compulsory. Others saw the benefit of including the resources in the course, even when they didn't necessarily think that they needed the resources themselves. And often students are aware that self-management is something that they should be prioritizing, but that it often gets put to the bottom of the to-do list, particularly when there is other assessment to be done. So this year, I've been thinking about how I might convince all students that engaging with these resources is relevant and beneficial to them. Angela Moles from the School of Bees made a really good analogy at the Science, Learning and Teaching event at the end of last year. She said that often teaching is a little bit like convincing kids to eat their broccoli. We know that it's good for them, but sometimes you need to cover it in butter and cheese to convince them to eat it. As a developmental psychologist, I've been thinking about this, and while butter and cheese or marks or grades are good, getting kids involved in the cooking process and allowing them to choose between broccoli or carrots or green beans might make them even more likely to engage. So in relation to self-management resources, it's possible that I need to make the self-management, engaging with the self-management resources worth their time by adding some incentives, but also give them some autonomy to choose to complete the activities that they think are going to be useful to them. So what am I doing this year? I teach a large second year course that has always had a tutorial prep component in which students can earn a small number of marks by completing the prep work that's required before they attend their tutorial each week. This year, I'm expanding that component of the assessment and allowing students to earn an additional 5 marks for completing self-management activities of their choice. I've chosen my favorite resources from the self-management section and added a few specific ones of my own that fall into 3 categories. Resources that encourage students to look forward, that is to plan and set goals and think about how they manage their time. To look back, that is to reflect on how they've approached an assessment and what they might do differently, or to critically engage with feedback in a way that allows them to improve their work. And then the third category is resources that encourage them to really critically engage with the content. So practicing reading critically and using evidence-based revision strategies, and thinking about how what they're learning relates to things they see in the real world or things they're learning in other courses. So it's a little bit like those choose your own adventure books that I used to love as a kid. Students can choose activities that they see to be relevant to them. If they have time management and planning down, they can choose activities that are more closely related to course content. If they're feeling okay about course content but don't know what to do with their peer feedback, they can choose activities relevant to that. So a few practical considerations. When I was picking resources, I wanted to strike a balance between having a range of different options to choose from while not overwhelming students and burdening them with decision fatigue or not knowing where to find things. So I've pulled all of the activity prompts into a Moodle book so that they can see all the options and when they're due in one place. I was also cognizant that I might be making a whole lot of work for myself. Not every student will choose to do every activity, but there are still 400 students in the class and no extra casual budget to have someone grade this component of the assessment for me. So Sue Morris, who has used self-management activities in her assessment for several years, recommended using the Moodle feedback tool, which is something that I hadn't used before. The feedback tool allows you to set a few simple questions to be answered in a feedback form for each activity. And that allows you to grade much more quickly than if you were requiring students to upload something into an assignment link. She also uses what she calls give it a good go grading, which I really like. So when completion is worth a really small amount of the final grade and you can set up really clear expectations about what good engagement looks like, you can grade quickly based on whether they have given it a good go. So it's a bit of an experiment, and with any new assessment endeavour, I think there are always risks and benefits. Perhaps adding incentives and giving students choice will up the engagement, which might have knock-on benefits for other assessment components, or maybe I'm going to drown in the grading. Definitely get in touch if you're keen to look at the Moodle book that I've created, or if you want an update, really how it went. Wish me luck.